Alright, hello everyone. You guys probably noticed what this video is going to be about, and that is pretty much the Concept 1B, the tank in the snow globes for the 2022 or the 2021 Christmas event. And it is a very rare tank as of now. However, that could change in a year or two, of course, because Wargaming doesn't usually, start selling the snow globe tanks this early on. For example, the AMX M4 has still not been sold for gold. However, the T22 was sold, in fact, after 2 years of the Christmas event. So we'll only have to wait and see when this thing is actually going to come out. Overall, this tank is a very good tank. However, it does have some negatives and advantages at the same time. Let's start off with the negatives because there aren't that many. And firstly, that is the very low alpha for a heavy tank. It's probably the lowest alpha per shot on a heavy tank, at least from a non-drum tank. So the Yo, for example, has a 300 something alpha per shot. However, this only has 380 and it is not a drum. And the reload time is 8 seconds, and so the Chieftain still outclasses this tank in terms of everything on the gun. So the Chieftain by far is still the most comfortable non-drum tank at tier 10, because the aim time, the dispersion, everything is very solid. The DPM is 3100 on the Chieftain, while it is closer to 2850 on this tank. And the 380 alpha, sometimes you really cannot feel it. With gold, sometimes you do 290 alpha, and that's just horrible for a heavy tank. Apart from that, the DPM itself is 2800, so if you really switch on the adrenaline, you can rip tanks to shreds. However, again, there are tanks that do it just better than this, like the Chieftain, for example. Even drum tanks like the AMX 50B and the T57 have a better DPM than this thing. So that's the first complaint. And the second complaint is the few weak spots it has. For example, you do have side armor, but you can't really effectively use it to side scrape, for example, just because of the fact that you have a lot of weak spots on the hull itself. And the tank itself has a lot of weak spots on top of the cupola, or the cupolas itself would be huge weak points for this tank. Since this tank is brand new, a lot of people cannot really adjust to it. However, if you're on a flat terrain, penetrating the tank in the cupolas is not a problem whatsoever, because most of the top part of the turret can be penetrated very easily. However, if you do go hull down, it's a lot harder to penetrate this thing because the cupolas are now hidden, and the tank itself has a decent armor, very good armor, in fact, not just decent, apart from the lower plate, so occasionally you will be bouncing shots. And the last weak point I really want to bring up is the fact that the main shell type on this thing is APCR. This means that the shell velocity is very good at almost 1500. However, the APCR means that you're going to, ricochet or not penetrate a lot of things quite often. For example, tracks or spaced armor, it won't really go through that well. And overall, APCR is much worse than AP at penetrating armor because it won't go through. Well, I don't need to explain the mechanics behind AP and APCR, but you guys just know that APCR would be a bit worse than AP. So those are the only disadvantages. However, everything else can easily be considered an advantage. The mobility on this thing is great. It's one of the faster non-drum heavy tanks. And so it gets into position very quickly at 45 kilometers per hour. On top of that, the gun handling, although not the best, it's still very comfortable. So it's one of the best non-drum tanks at tier 10 in terms of gun handling. And as you can see here, it's one of the better tanks. It's probably better than the Chieftain at going hull down. Even though the gun is worse, the armor on the turret and overall armor is just much better compared to the Chieftain, and therefore technically you can go hull down for much not longer, but like the longevity of that is going to be much better. Overall, I really enjoyed this tank, and if it does come out for gold, I would recommend everyone to get it. So with that, Happy is out, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.